What happened in Leeds was not just a collapse. It was the spark that exposed, before millions, a United Kingdom already pushed to its limit for years. And before you think it was just another riot, let me warn you, what you're about to hear explains why veterans, pensioners, and entire families reached the point of facing the police in broad daylight, and why this is only the beginning. In the past hours, the country witnessed something not seen since the tensest days of social crisis. Whole cities rising up at once, as if awakened from a collective coma. And if you think it was coincidence, brace yourself. Because leaked documents, secret contracts, and decisions made behind closed doors reveal a plan so cold, so calculated, that even seasoned analysts were shocked. This video is a warning, a revelation, and an alert. What started today could change the UK's political future forever. Leeds did not wake up in flames. Leeds was pushed into chaos, and those who pushed knew exactly what they were doing. When the first videos emerged showing veterans treated like criminals, the elderly forcibly removed, and families watching the destruction of places they'd lived for decades, something long dormant exploded. And while Starmer and his allies tried to control the narrative, the truth seeped through the cracks. £1 million contracts signed before any structural assessment. Friendly firms granted no bid authorizations, and policies seemingly designed not to protect the people, but to clear entire areas for massive private profit. And, my friend, when the people realize they've been deceived, betrayed, and used, they do not back down. They raise their heads and demand answers, and that is exactly what happened today in Leeds, Birmingham, Manchester, and Glasgow. When the 67-year-old veteran raised his prosthetic leg above his head and shouted, "I gave this for Britain, and now they're taking our homes," the whole country stopped. It was not just a phrase, it was a symbol, a cry that cut across the UK like lightning. Online, the image went viral in seconds, reaching millions while ministers still scrambled for excuses. And for an audience like yours, patriotic, tired of being lied to, and outraged by the injustices of the left, this image was pure fuel on a fire already burning. It summed up, in a single gesture, everything Starmer's government tried to hide. The betrayal, the contempt for those who served their country, and the backroom deals to enrich allies, while ordinary citizens lost everything. And as that realization spread, what followed made clear the people would no longer accept silence or manipulation. From that moment, Leeds ceased to be just a city. It became the epicenter of a moral, emotional, and political revolt that no one, absolutely no one, in government saw coming. The crowd grew in minutes, and with it, the certainty that something much bigger was happening. People were not there simply because a building collapsed. They were there because they finally understood the staircase's collapse was, in fact, the collapse of years of lies, neglect, and decisions made in the shadows. And as the first images of the collapse circulated, dust, screams, police running, the questions spread faster than any official statement. Why were evacuation orders issued before technical reports? Why were private companies already contracted weeks before any supposed structural risk? And why did the whole scheme seem to always benefit the same government cronies? When the video of the veteran being pushed to the ground by police exploded online, the narrative changed instantly, and changed forever. It was no longer protest. It was no longer confusion. It was visual proof that force was being used not to protect, but to intimidate. In just 14 seconds, that video became explosive fuel for millions of Britons who already distrusted the government, but now had concrete evidence before their eyes. The brutal treatment of those who gave their lives for their country. And for your audience, mostly 45 plus, patriotic, conservative, and weary of abandonment, that scene was a gut punch. The revolt did not come just from the shove, but from the sense that the state had finally shown its true face. There, before the whole nation, was the perfect portrait of the UK under Starmer. Police against veterans, government against the people, elites against ordinary citizens. Meanwhile, in the tall, silent buildings of Westminster, the reaction was pure panic. Ministers watched screens with wide eyes. Aides tried to put out fires already completely out of control. And the old tactic of blaming misunderstanding simply did not work. The public had seen everything with their own eyes. There was no way to reverse, manipulate, or edit what was recorded in every circulating video. And as rumors spread, from hidden documents to engineers allegedly expelled from the site, any attempt at an official response was seen as a lie. Because the problem was not just the collapse, it was the accumulation. It was the sum of years of distrust, broken promises, and decisions that always seemed to benefit a small elite aligned with the government. And the people this time were no longer willing to listen in silence. In the streets, revolt spread like sparks on dry tinder. Birmingham, Manchester, Glasgow, all reacted almost simultaneously, as if the whole country had been waiting for just a spark to release years of pent-up frustration. And this was no ordinary revolt. It was veterans banging canes and crutches against shields, workers shouting they could take no more, pensioners holding handwritten signs denouncing abandonment. The feeling that took hold of the UK was simple and devastating. If they did this in Leeds, they will do it anywhere. And this perception, so deep and so dangerous for the government, caught the attention of your audience. Britons who value discipline, order, patriotism, and now feel betrayed by those who were supposed to protect them. It was impossible to watch the crowds and not think that something bigger, something historic, was forming before our eyes. Before I go on, let me ask you something important. If you feel the same outrage as millions of Britons did today, then do not let this pass in silence. Hit the subscribe button now and leave a like, because every new person who joins here strengthens this community that refuses to be deceived by the government and the official media. We are a free voice, and, with your help, we will continue exposing what they try to hide. So if you haven't already, click now and join this patriotic resistance. And as the streets seethed, social media became the second front of the battle. Hashtags exploded. Leeds collapse. Truth for Britain. Release the files. Videos were shared at a speed no spokesperson could keep up with. And most striking? The division. One part of the country, outraged, demanded answers. Another, gripped by the legitimate paranoia of those who have seen too much political dirt, spoke of covert operations, billion-pound contracts, a scheme assembled with cold calculation. And for the government, this was the worst possible scenario, because when belief replaces facts, no press conference can calm the nation. Every government silence was interpreted as guilt, every explanation as manipulation. And, for the first time in years, millions of Britons began to look at Westminster not as leadership, but as a threat. And it was in this chaos that something unexpected happened, something no one in government imagined they would see. The veterans, those same people who were pushed, ignored, and treated as a nuisance by the system, stepped to the front line. But not to attack. They raised megaphones and called for discipline. They called for focus. They asked the people not to give the government the perfect excuse to crush the movement. The image of these men and women, many marked by wars that Britain itself insists on forgetting, bringing order where the state had failed, shocked the nation. And for your audience, patriotic, conservative, nostalgic for a strong Britain, that scene was emotionally devastating. It was as if the true guardians of the nation had taken on the role Westminster abandoned. And in that instant, under the harsh afternoon sun, it became clear. The people were not there to destroy the country. They were there to save what was left of it. As the streets tried to catch their breath, experts stepped in, and what they revealed demolished the official version. Engineers analyzed the images of the staircase collapsing and said, in no uncertain terms, that this was not a natural collapse. It was a building weakened over years, neglected, pushed to the limit, possibly deliberately. Seasoned politicians began to suggest that the Leeds evacuation was not a mistake, but a calculated move, part of a larger plan to clear entire areas and hand out million-pound contracts to government-friendly firms. And when financial reports showed that Hawkstone Urban Solutions had forecast increased profits months before the structural problems were announced, the country understood. Someone knew, someone profited, and someone lied. And for the people who watch your channel, suspicious of the left, fed up with manipulation, and sensitive to the stench of political trickery, this revelation was the final proof that the rot went much deeper than anyone imagined. As new information emerged, the perception that everything had been carefully orchestrated went from theory to national conviction. Documents showed that evacuation orders were signed before inspections even began, that security teams were hired before any risk was confirmed, that metal barriers arrived at the buildings before any engineer set foot on site. And when journalists discovered that the same politicians talking about protecting residents were dining with representatives of the companies benefiting from the contracts, the country lost what little patience remained. The UK, especially the older, conservative, patriotic public, felt it was reliving the worst days of political betrayal, but this time clearer, more brazen, more cruel. It was as if the mask had finally slipped, and what lay beneath was a toxic mix of profit, abandonment, and manipulation. By the way, take a moment to comment below where you're watching this video from. I want to see how far this voice is reaching. Leeds, London, Manchester, Birmingham, or any other corner of our Britain. Every comment helps the video reach more patriots who, like you, are tired of being ignored. So write it down. Which city are you watching all this from? By late afternoon, as the sun began to set over Leeds, something even deeper settled over the country. A heavy, almost painful silence. It was not the silence of calm. It was the silence of those who finally understood the problem was not just a building that fell, but an entire system that collapsed with it. Families wept before the ruins. Veterans brushed dust from each other's faces. Neighbors embraced near police barriers. Humanity remained there, firm, resilient, British, while trust in leadership evaporated like smoke. And in this silence, a question began to echo from house to house, city to city. If they did this in Leeds, what else have they done that we don't yet know? This doubt, this open wound, spread more powerfully than any protest. It was the feeling of a whole country realizing it had been in the dark for far too long. As night fell, the crisis ceased to be an isolated episode and became a turning point for the UK. Political analysts, independent commentators, and even former MPs admitted the government now faced a crisis of legitimacy, not just image. The collapse in Leeds exposed not only a fragile building, but a fractured state, corroded by distorted priorities and the arrogance of leaders who had not listened to the people for years. And for the older, patriotic, left-skeptic audience, those who follow your channel precisely because they already sense the government's moral downfall, This moment sounded like final confirmation. It was not hysteria. It was not exaggeration. The country really was being manipulated by private interests, while ordinary citizens bore the weight of the consequences. And now, after what happened today, it was clear. Something much bigger is about to begin, and no one believes Westminster is prepared for what is coming. And so we reach the point no government wants to face. The moment when the country looks directly at its leaders and sees no leadership at all. What happened in Leeds became a merciless mirror, reflecting the truth that millions of Britons already felt in their hearts. When the system fails in silence, the people speak loudly. And today, the people spoke. They spoke in the streets, online, in squares, at the gates of Westminster. They spoke through veterans raising megaphones, families protecting each other, and neighbors turning despair into courage. Now, the great question looms over the nation like a shadow. Will we accept ready-made excuses and investigations that go nowhere? Or will we demand, once and for all, that the files be opened, that those responsible be exposed, that the truth, the whole truth, come to light? The choice is before the UK, vast and urgent. And for those who follow this channel, the answer is clear. Britain can no longer be governed in the shadows. The next chapter is about to begin. And when it comes to light, you will want to be here to see it.